So I made a comment on someone else's video, uh, contesting their notion that that telepathy was somehow ridiculous, and I pointed out that I tried to refer them to a book by Dean Radin called Entangled Minds, in which he examines the experimental evidence for what was known as PSI. It's been going on for from experiments that have been going on for half a century now. Um, And actually, someone else in the in that comment thread basically attacked me as I had every reason to expect, but saying that I was ridiculous and being anti-scientific. I object. I'm being pro-scientific. These experiments have been going on for half a century now, and what they show is a statistically significant correlation inside that although it's not like I think one thing that keeps one sort of argument against side that people have is they think it's supposed to be some sort of superpower like you see in comic books. You're supposed to be able to lift objects with your mind, or be able to for to accurately foresee the future. I mean, but the thing, whereas um, my idea about psi is that if it's real, then it's something that's so commonplace that we don't even notice it, except on rare occasions when it's sort of acting up in an unusual way. I mean, that's the way it is with our normal senses. We don't even normally think about our sense of smell until some really powerful aroma comes to us. Um, and what Dean Radin wants to argue is that the evidence, the experimental evidence for psi has been coming in, and it shows pretty conclusively that there's something interesting going on here. But the reason it's kind of kept out of mainstream scientific discussion is that there's a taboo against it. People feel, if you try to research psi, or God forbid suggest that there might be something to it, then you're denounced as phantasmagorical and as some sort of new age person who's not credible as a scientist. And the thing is, it's not necessarily that scientists will denounce you to do it. The intelligentsia will denounce you to do it. People like James Randi, who happens to not be a scientist, by the way, he's a showman, but people who are boisterous and outspoken about how it's impossible because it doesn't fit our current paradigm. Yeah, I wish these people would read Thomas Kuhn about how that science has a paradigm that it operates on, and then at some point some aberrations come into the paradigm, some experimental findings that don't fit the current paradigm, and that's either ignored or tossed aside for the moment and say, oh well, it's just we'll be able to explain it later, as soon as we just get our models right, until eventually a paradigm shift happens where people find a whole new model of seeing things, and then all that experimental evidence that's built up suddenly fits in perfectly, and they're yeah, and then the thing that was once seen as ridiculous is now accepted as common sense. I think a good example of that is with continental drift, where they've known for a long time that South America fits neatly into Africa, and kids in elementary school raise their hand and point that out, and she says no, that's ridiculous. Until eventually they came up with the theory of continental drift, and they're just like, oh yeah, of course, South America once fit into Africa. Yeah, what are you, stupid? Of course that's true. But and the point is, and I'm not necessarily too attached to the idea that of psi being real. I mean, it makes sense to me. I think it is. I have my own comments. I've had experiences of stuff like that. Yeah, and I think most of us have. Most of us have like gut feelings and the feeling of being stared at, and telephone telepathy, knowing who's calling before before they call. Um, and I think, it only seems spectacular because our current paradigm, because of our sort of reductionist paradigm, which puts things as fundamentally separate. But if instead we view reality as fundamentally interconnected, as nothing existing in itself, everything relying on the whole for its own existence, then psi shouldn't be that paranormal at all. It should be uh, just common sense. And I think I mean, and the thing is, the tides are starting to turn. Even Richard Dawkins has kind of started. He hasn't necessarily conceded to the existence of psi, but he's conceded to its to the possibility that there might be something to it. So, and I think eventually that paradigm is going to shift. And once we sort of have a more a more sophisticated model of mind, then the science then science will be able to fit psi into its models perfectly. Um, so that's my thoughts for now.